can't believe I am with Shaun and Dianna Nepstad for season 4 of Unscripted. You guys are going to make it the best season.
We love you more than you can even comprehend.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do know that I love having these unscripted conversations. It's not planned. You don't know where we're
Yeah, I
going to
asked
talk
for a
about.
script, and you're like, it's titled Unscripted for a reason.
For a reason. But I've loved talking to incredible leaders, a lot of our friends, people that do incredible things for the cause of Christ. And that's what this whole series is about. That's what this season is about, season 4. And so thanks a lot for joining us. Appreciate you and your family. Love your family so much. And it's even better to have the Queen with us.
Yes.
It's better to have the Queen.
The Queen Mother.
A lot of times I'm just talking to the guy, and now we're having the Queen Mother with us.
She's going to keep us on the straight and narrow path. And
oh my goodness.
She's the Holy One. Yeah, she's the Holy One, the proper theology.
Yeah.
If it was just me and you, it would be really bad.
So y'all have always led together. You started a church together. We're in a great church. I love your church. Love being with you always at Fellowship
Thank
here in
you.
Antioch. It's just a great culture, great heart, great people, energy, worship. My goodness, your girls are all involved. Of course, a great team. Your family's in this thing together. Give me a moment of the story. Give me a little bit of the story of planting a church together and then leading together. What's it been like?
Well, we got married back during the 1900s, 1998. And we started the church when I was 24 years old. Mm-hmm. And you got to be half crazy to start a church at 24.
Yeah, you're a baby.
We started the church, and back in the day, it was just hang a banner and then preach your guts out and have great worship, and the church will grow.
Yeah.
And it might work for a couple people, but it wasn't working for us. We grew to 300 people and then plateaued. And 300 is a great sized church, but we had so much more inside of. We had so much more inside of our heart to reach more people. And what do you do when the dream inside of you isn't matching the reality that's in front of you?
Yeah.
You grow increasingly frustrated. And so we're bouncing around from school to school because the city made us move every single year. And I was done. She's filled with the Holy Spirit, and she's full of faith. And I was under my desk begging God, show me somebody else to pass this church to because I've hit my lid. And we found ARC. We started a prayer meeting. I catch on really fast. Hey guys, 7 years, maybe we should pray. It was that prayer meeting and then the relationship with the ARC. And I'll never forget coming to your church. Mm-hmm. And I came back and I told Dianna, where have these guys been all our lives?
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing that ARC helps out church planning with finances. Mm-hmm. It's another to have fathers. It's another to have uncles. It's another to have family and a tribe. So God bless us. The church took off, and we're just so grateful.
And 2 words, Dianna, that have always described you as a church. There's 2 words I hear around here a lot.
Yes, it's hope and healing.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, Shaun went around in our neighborhood, basically, just like days of old in the Old Testament. Yep, old school. And just walking from one end of the city to the next. And so the Lord really gave him a picture of what the communities were walking through. You have the affluent who were up and out. You had those who are struggling with either their financial health or their mental health crisis or things with family. And so it was the down and out. And so the Lord gave him 2 specific words that would heal those scenarios, and it was hope and healing. Hope for tomorrow, and healing from your yesterday.
Wow.
And those are remedies of what God can do when he enters a situation.
So if you're here, when you visit here at Fellowship, you feel that immediately.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. Those are 2 big hooks that you kind of hang everything on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those are deciding points. Hey, does this bring that? Does that create that?
Mm-hmm.
How much is it a little bit of your North Star, your North Pole, those poles of hope and healing? How much is it for you when people are trying to decide, I want to be a church like, this is what we're all about? Obviously, God gave you that. And so you obviously built a lot around that. And I think it's important to know your values.
Yeah, it really has been what we're known for, even more than the church name Fellowship Church.
Okay.
It is hope and healing. The 2 words that I almost saw the vision of our area. And every pastor thinks their city is the hardest city in the whole wide world.
Yeah.
Every pastor thinks Lucifer, Beelzebub himself, is assigned to their city.
Right.
So I knew every city was a challenge, but I was walking through the city and I saw these 2 different words. One was brokenness and one's emptiness, and different sides of a freeway. And these two words, I'm preaching mid-preach one time, and the Lord helped me understand this is the remedy to what you saw the need was.
Wow.
Brokenness and emptiness. I'm going to give you hope, and I'm going to give you healing. So everything we do around here centers around that, and it's all around Christ, obviously, so people know where that hope and healing comes from. But it's been more than a slogan. It's been a word that defines our culture.
Yeah, it's good. It's way more than a slogan.
Yeah.
You know, it's values. It's the why behind the what. It's things shouldn't be this way as you saw them.
Yeah.
So if it shouldn't be that way, then how should it be?
Yeah.
I think that helps people understand, what am I supposed to do in this city? How am I supposed to engage the community?
Yeah,
What is
plus
my
you
assignment?
embody it. You embody
yeah.
it too.
Tell me about that.
I think for both of us, the Lord really impacted our story. So hope and healing is not something that, it's through osmosis, that it came from the air and then we just absorbed it. It's something that we lived.
Yeah.
The Lord transformed our lives. Him coming from a divorced household, me coming from mom and dad household, but dad was abusing me at home.
Yeah.
So there is a lack of hope. There's a lack of healing, and the Lord embodies all of that for the person who is broken.
Yeah, and you have a church like that. Tell me about Antioch. What about? I know it's kind of the Bay Area.
Yes.
But we hear a lot about San Francisco right now.
Yes.
I mean, a whole lot. I mean,
Yeah.
just the pain, the plight.
Yes.
It's a political city that impacts the country. You hear there's certain cities that are these landmark cities that reverberate beyond the region. So you have a national city that people hear about, but then you're in a pocket of that. Tell me about Antioch and what it's like to build a church here.
It's known as the Bible Belt. And, and we're trying to make it that.
Yeah.
But it is an eclectic.
It's so known for that.
Yes. It is an eclectic bunch of precious people. And it's so interesting because people who know that they are far from God, it's easy to preach to them nowadays. And what I mean by that is every week we're seeing hundreds of people come to Christ. And some of my friends from the South are like, what are you doing to see that many people come to Christ? And I'm like, we know we're lost over here. In the South, everybody thinks they're saved already. You got to get them lost before you get them saved. And we are seeing so many precious people from all different backgrounds come to know who Jesus is. We just had a baptism service and 357 people got baptized in one day. And there's a hunger that we have not seen in years starting to take place again. And we saw it in the beginning of the year. We saw it in a few universities, and then we started seeing it in churches. And what the Lord told me was that revival is God's response to hunger.
Sure.
You bring the hunger. God said, I will promise you, if you hunger and thirst for righteousness, it's a law, I will fill you. So we've been trying to develop that hunger, that appetite for more of God. And what we've seen is more people have been coming to Christ than we've seen in a long time, and a hunger and a desire to go after the things of God. So it's such a diverse community, rich with history, a lot of pain. But one of the things that you taught me a long time ago was to run to pain.
Oh, yeah.
It's so funny because sermons and books don't even change your life. Sentences do. Little things that someone will say will change the trajectory of even where you're heading.
Yeah.
And you told me a long time ago, run to pain. Find pain points and run to them. So you taught us how to run to serve the city. You taught us how to run, and even though 87% of the body of Christ do not have the gift of evangelism, 11% do. What does the 87% of us, what do we do? I hate knocking on doors. I'm a pastor and I don't like knocking on doors.
Sure.
I would knock on a door real quiet and be like, man, I ain't here, let's keep going. But you taught us how simple it is to serve people, even a bottle of water in the name of Christ, or, what Servolution has done, one of the greatest movements around the world. And I know you don't like people to toot your horn, but it's just what God's done through you. I'm very, very grateful for that. And so, there's been so many people that their eyes are starting to be open again to the goodness of God in this area. It's remarkable.
Yeah. And speaking of diversity, so what is your background?
I'm Nicaraguense, by my mom's side
For all
of
the
the
people
family.
who don't speak Spanish, that's Nicaragua.
Sorry, that's
Yeah,
Nicaragua.
it was so good that it was smooth, strong. It was unscripted.
Yeah.
So Nicaragua.
So Central American.
Okay, yeah.
My family's from Nicaragua.
Yeah.
And my mom emigrated from her country to come into the U.S.
Wow.
at the age of 14
Yeah.
years old. And so I was born here. I was born in Martinez and grew up in Pittsburgh, California, which is the city next to Antioch.
Oh,
and so
okay.
the diversity here has always been, like in Oakland, the basis of that area was Chinese originally. In San Francisco, you had African Americans and Italians and some of the people from the East Coast coming into the West to find gold. So, you know, the gold rush days.
Yeah.
And then as you go into more of the suburbs, you have more of the Italian culture, the African
very
American
much.
culture, the
Yeah.
Spanish culture, Chinese culture. And so from that homegrown diversity, now you have
Interesting.
more like expatriates where other people are immigrating from their countries to come here.
Yeah.
And so that's a different kind of diversity. It's more of people coming in, not being born here,
Right.
but now making this as their home.
And you feel it in your church.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're speaking here, I'm around, and the church to me, and I don't know the demographics of the community, but it feels like you represent the community.
Sure.
And I think sometimes we have these goals of diversity. Let's become diverse. Well, I think the goal is always to reflect the heart, the nature
Yeah.
of the city and the people that God has called
Sure,
you to
sure.
be. And you sense that here when you look around and you see this incredible color that is very various throughout the auditorium,
Yeah.
or in the foyer,
Yeah.
and the culture that brings.
Yes.
And you can sense, even what you're saying, you sense that it's just not the color of the skin, it's the culture that it brings,
Yeah.
and the flavor that it brings to the church. You sense it here in the worship. You sense it, of course, in you two, in who you are, in your children. And what has that been like for you, Shaun, leading such a multicultural, multi-diverse, different levels of economy?
Sure.
I mean, it's just a different type of way, blue collar, white collar.
Yeah.
Which that's always unique. It was like that for us in Louisiana. What is that like for you? How do you think about it in your preaching, in your communicating, in your leading?
You can only build the church that's in your heart. And if you have a heart for it, you lean into that. And it's just something that has always been a part of our life. I'm a white boy raised in East Oakland, which is predominantly
Oakland representing
African-American,
A's, them old A's.
born in the Philippines, married to a Latina. And our church just happens to be white, Hispanic, African-American,
Yeah.
and Filipino.
Yeah.
And so I think there's some humor in that, but the Lord has just brought some beautiful people. Even when there's been tension racially
Okay.
in the Bay Area,
Okay.
people would come in and I would watch them in our lobby. And I watched them just wondering, is there going to be tension here? Because there's tension out there.
Yeah.
Will there be tension here? What I saw was people walked in and there was a sigh of relief as they would hug somebody, not their race, and say, this is my brother. I came here for peace. So there's something so special about the body of Christ. We are his body. We are the family of God. And for us, it has been always a unique thing. It's been a fun thing. And I think it is a gift. But I think
It
a
is.
church ought to represent and reflect the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you can't expect a white church in a white neighborhood to be diverse. You can't expect a black church in a black neighborhood to be diverse.
Yeah.
But if you are in a diverse community, your church ought to be
Yeah.
somewhat diverse.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think is important, and I see this here, you guys do a good job. Of course, we love Pastor Chris at Church of the Highlands and the growth track that he's introduced, the steps. It's a pathway. And thank God for a pathway. You've got a lot of different people coming in from different spiritual, religious background. I know in Louisiana, we were 95% Catholic. So, I mean, it wasn't hard to guess who just walked in the door.
Sure.
They're coming from a Catholic background. So we were able to embrace that, navigate that, help them take steps. And you guys have been the best at that. I mean, we've had days here with you where we had leader roundtables. People are here learning that from the both of you, learning that from your team, breakout sessions constantly where you're teaching that. A lot of different churches are here learning from you. And one of those specialties, I tell everybody when they're trying to figure out the growth track, for them in a diverse community or people coming in at a different level of spiritual, you guys have leaned into that. So walk me through that a little bit as it relates to people that come to you at all different levels of spiritual knowledge or on the spiritual graph.
Yeah.
You're getting a lot of it.
Well, they're attracted primarily to what they feel and sense, even if they can't articulate it.
Yeah.
And then when you clarify, this is Jesus. This is not an aura. This is not pop psychology or astrology. It's Jesus.
Or religion.
Yeah. And then you provide a next step. Oftentimes, pastors, what I felt growing up is they never provided a clarity to a next step. So people would give their life to Christ and then do nothing. It would be like hitting a home run and not running the bases. So you got to make the pathway of growth track so clear. And for us, being stuck at for 7 years with zero growth, it was me. I was the lid, hands down. Not Diana. She was trying to get me to release some things, but I was the one-man band. And you've seen a one-man band anywhere, any city. He's got the guitar, he's got the harmonica, he's playing cymbals between his legs.
I love the guitar.
It's impressive at first glance, but the closer you look, the more pitiful it is, and you'd never have that guy lead worship on a Sunday.
Right.
But that was me. I was leading worship, setting up, tearing down, offering, preaching, announcements. Not even a prayer team. It's like line them up Benny Hinn style. I'm going to pray for everybody.
Old school.
And I wasn't raising leaders.
Yeah.
Nobody taught me how to raise leaders.
Yeah, sure.
It was just preach your guts out and the church will grow. Well, we begin to develop people through the growth track and make it priority. This is something else.
That's so important.
Some churches I've noticed, they have a growth track that is a thing they do, but it's not the thing they do.
Yeah.
And if it's just a thing they do, there's no value on it and people aren't going through it. But for us, it really was a place for people to join because here's what I know for sure. The most connected people in any church are serving in the small groups, hands down.
Yeah.
And I like to tell the story of my first stock purchase of Krispy Kreme donuts. Nobody told me to buy Krispy Kreme. I just was like, man, I want to put my mouth under the glaze machine. I'm pretty sure people do
just
too.
lay on it.
Yeah, just la. So they gave the option to buy stock. I went in and it went up split 4 times. Every day I'm on my little Toshiba laptop. Is it growing? Is it growing? I'd be in staff meeting pretending I'm paying attention.
Oh, yeah.
Is it growing?
Checking them dollars.
I sold it.
Yeah.
I don't ever check it. I don't care because I'm no longer invested. We're not anti-Krispy Kreme. We'll go there and get the party hat and a few donuts. We enjoy it while we're there. But we don't care whether it grows because we're not invested. So that's church. People come, they like the preaching, like the worship. Kids get a coloring page, but they don't care whether the church grows because they're not invested until they are.
Yeah.
Serving and in small groups. They will not care if it grows. So God blessed us with the growth track principle from ARC. And that changed everything.
Yeah, changed our lives.
To the point now we grew so much with a very small staff because half of our congregation was serving on the dream team.
Yeah, thank God for, I know a lot of us learned that whole, we talked about hit a home run, don't run around the bases. I mean, Rick Warren came out with the base path back in the 90s. Yeah. And then how God gave Pastor Chris this idea of these next steps and kind of this other generation of it. Yeah. And it's just helped so many different churches to move, try to move forward, believe that there's a new possible, that there's something possible for us that we haven't done. And I think that's huge. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Unscripted. I just want to personally thank and take a brief moment to say thank you to incredible organization, Compassion. You've heard of them. They help make this episode possible. Compassion has been serving the world's most vulnerable children. It's interesting that that's their target. I love it. In the name of Jesus, very important, for over 70 years. And they do it all through the local church. That's a huge win. Your church and Compassion can do so many things together, including being able to serve the developing world through missions. So let's take all that we've learned. We're so blessed through missions. They just do a great job of letting us know those things. They also provide tangible long-term solutions for global issues such as preventable illness, natural disasters, lack of clean water. We hear a lot about that. Can't do enough for that. Then also, I think they help us follow the example of Jesus and create compassion services that they do through child sponsorship. I think they're some of the best at that. Make sure to check them out on our website, UNSCRIPTED.com/partners to learn more about how to get involved, as well as the access. And I think this is huge. Some free resources that they prepared especially for the ARC family and all those that are watching Unscripted. Thanks a lot, Compassion. And one of the things I love about you guys being around is how you lead together. I think that's neat, and everybody does that in different ways.
Yeah.
Whether it's the home or the kids or different ways, and I celebrate all those things because my wife Delynn has done those in different seasons.
Yeah.
You talk a lot about that, Diana, the different seasons of leading with Shaun, leading here at the church, and where maybe probably there were seasons that you were visible, not as visible,
Right.
Because you had some children. You had some kids.
We had 4 girls under the age of 2.
Unscripted kids, unscripted kids be showing up around him. So tell me a little bit about that. I think that's important for people to hear.
Well, I think we never endeavored to or made it our mission to lead together.
Okay.
We just did it.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone ever told us, don't do that. We always saw the model
It's forbidden.
from his family, and also from the church experience that I saw my mom grow up in.
Okay.
It was to see men and women labor together.
Yeah, I like
it's
that.
something that is a partnership. And so for me, in the younger years, where I was, with 4 kids, 3 kids in a triple stroller and 1 on a leash. It was just trying to manage my life, drinking coffee, trying to maintain some kind of rhythm. And at the same time as Shaun was in a conference, no one ever told me, oh, go stay home. I just involved myself in it. I was learning leadership alongside him. So there was a portion of my life where I just decided, I'm just going to dedicate my life and just focus on my children. It's not because I didn't see that things weren't attainable. I just thought that, the best use of my energy and time is to invest in my children. Those are my first disciples.
Sure.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
so as I grew into, and my children started growing up, that's when I started taking on a little bit more and a little bit more. Kids area, I was part of that. Then I started developing teams, and then I started developing the team culture. And then I started taking on a little bit more as I was homeschooling.
Right.
So responsibilities will grow and change, but so does what you begin to see as your bandwidth. You start reaching across and just holding on a little bit more of responsibility.
Yeah.
So now we're both on the teaching team. Now we're both leading teams. I'm the direct report for all the staff.
Okay.
And so I manage team components. I work more like quality control, making sure culture is good, dynamics and best practices are practiced here. So those things are important to me because they know firsthand that mom's in the house.
Yeah.
Mom's going to take
That's
care
good.
of them.
How did you, I know Delinda had to work through this, and I think every pastor wife that deals with, comparison or feeling guilty. I'm not doing enough, or I'm doing too much. I need to be back home with my kids. I think every mother, every pastor's wife, you see that there's a tension, and that is something they deal with. Delynn dealt with that when she was real involved, because we didn't have kids when we started, and then she starts having babies, and she's not able to put in as much because she knew that was her first priority, her first disciple. And then she re-engaged again, different seasons where our church was growing, and she had different roles, like you're saying. How did you navigate that?
I think I had really good, strong models from his side of the family. There are 5 generations of pastors. And so I had good examples like your cousin Kim, who was my pastor at the time. I saw her model what it was like to be a woman in ministry, her focus. And for me, it was, I never had the opportunity to let the comparison trap haunt me. I think that came in when social media started to come in. Social media is like the great depressor for every woman.
Accelerated.
Yes, it becomes very depressing for a woman who feels like she's building and yet never attaining that place where it's the target and it's unattainable. So for me, I just decided I'm very content where I am. My kids need me most at home. They need me well. And the way I can serve the church best for me at the time was to focus on our happiness as a couple, not necessarily the happiness of the church, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So the growth of the church just came naturally. And with that, my heart just, I was just training my heart to be content where I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that I can.
4 daughters in how long? How quick?
Oh,
Under 2. So we had a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, and twins were 0.
0. Yeah. Yeah. We
So-
weren't the best planners, okay?
I love it. I love it.
That's her, though.
I love it.
Hey.
Sometimes I just
So
like
how
to
did
cuddle.
you? So let me ask you another question because I think we're onto something. How did you, when he's going through this frustration of feeling stuck and stalled? Because I know there were seasons like that for me. We were trying to build a building one time in Baton Rouge, and the building got stuck and stalled. Katrina, money, different things, and I was frustrated. Nobody cheered, supported, helped, communicated, understood more than Delynn.
Yeah.
And sometimes she got the bad part of it because I would vent. And I would unload.
Yeah, totally normal.
And just, I'm quitting. It's over. I'm done. I'm moving. It's
So
over.
normal.
You know, how did you support him in that?
It just helps to dial out a world that doesn't necessarily need to speak into us. And what I mean by that, other people's stories of success, it may not necessarily be
It can inspire
vibing.
you. Yeah.
It may not be vibing with our journey now.
Sure.
And so for me, it was focusing more on, is home stable? Does home feel good? Is he enjoying his kids? And I can always rope his heart and his mindset back to the kids' joy and contentment, and it kind of eliminates that, lack of a better phrase, an aura of like gray, something that will haunt, something that will depress him. Yeah, but the encouragement is there. Of course, the love relationship is healthy. But I just never allowed myself to go there.
Yeah.
I don't know
She's
why.
such a strong optimist. And even in moments where, like this building that we got, it took 9 months and there's horrible betrayal and things like that from the owner, and it went bad and south. And I mean, they sent us letters. This is your final denial, bold, underline, don't ask again. And I remember I was so mad, and I literally heard a voice, it's now physically impossible. And I hit my bed just, because it was soft. But I was so mad. And she's in here doing her hair. She's seen everything I've seen. She's like, it's okay, God's got this. And I'm like, well, thank you, Miss Holy Spirit. My faith is still in process right now. But she is such a woman of prayer, and she is an optimist, speaking faith when I didn't really feel it, so very grateful for that.
Thank God he gives us what we need.
Yeah.
To all the singles, he'll give you, if you wait, he'll give you that helpmate.
And if it's not a spouse, you need a small group. You need somebody to speak you off the ledge.
Speak faith. And it's same with Delynn. I mean, God gave me what I needed in a very principle-driven woman, a very right and wrong, God's word.
That's right.
She's very definite in who she believes in. She doesn't waffle much when it comes to the truth of the scripture. Sometimes I can start doubting, okay, we're going to do this or we're not. She's, so thank God he gives us, what we need. When I know you wrote a great book, and I love books that all of a sudden coin a phrase that now is a phrase in a pocket of the body of Christ. So God gave you something as a gift, because I know you feel that way. He doesn't give it to us just for us. He gave you something to give. And so, the idea of don't quit in the dip, I mean, that's a phrase now for, hundreds of thousands of people, thousands of churches, people have preached it. Did he give you some of that then? Was that across a journey? Was that across a season? Was it a day? It hit me. How did you get that? Of course, there's a whole book and there's sermon, but how did you get that phrase? And what does that mean to you now that it's lived a life in the body of Christ?
You never really appreciate the lessons God's teaching you while you're learning them.
Oh, no, not at all.
It's when you're on the other side that you look back and you realize, oh, I grew. And for us, there was a dip, and everybody has a dip. This version of success that we have, this idea, a God dream, there's a dip before you get there.
Yeah.
And there's always a dip, and most people quit in the dip. And I was about to. part of that journey was I was literally ready to quit in that dip. Successful people are not exempt from a dip. The people that you admire, it's not like they skipped the dip. They had it too, they just didn't stop. But there's lessons that I had to learn in that dip, and there's things I had to leave behind in the dip. And one of the greatest things I had to learn was, like Joseph, there were people waiting for you on the other side of the dip.
Yeah.
Like for everybody listening to the podcast right now, for you, for me, for her, and every great leader that's gone before us, where would we be, and where would the other people be in their life had they stopped?
Yeah.
Because they're like Joseph, he saved thousands of people's lives.
Oh, man.
Well, if he would have quit in the prison or quit in the pit or quit wherever, where would those people be? So when you get out of it, you begin to realize, oh, I did learn some stuff. And you're trying to communicate yell to other people in the dip and even jump down in the dip and help them realize this isn't the end.
Right.
You know, your depression does not have to be a life sentence. God He's still got you. There's still a plan. And I think part of the reason why we wrote the book and why we are trying to reach people like that is because a lot of people think that that is their end. And it's not. Like, we went to Phantom of the Opera, and she's a classically trained opera singer, and like legit. And she walked away from that sacrifice to come and follow Christ. Yeah. And she was going to go be an intern for the Metropolitan Opera in New York, and she was far from God, came back, we met, and that was the best decision she's ever made. No, I'm kidding. But I took her, I said, I'm going to take her to Phantom of the Opera. And she's like, it's not an opera, it's a musical. And I'm thinking, well, they need to take it out of the name then, because that doesn't even make sense. It's false advertising, in my opinion. So we sit through an hour of this and singing, and there's costumes and all that, and then all of a sudden the curtain closed. And I'm thinking, well, that was a weird place to end. And she leans over and schools my untrained mind. Oh, that's not the end, that's just intermission.
Yeah.
So we get up and go outside, get popcorn, soda, come back in, curtains open again. And when they open, everything has changed. New set design, new costumes, new singers, all of this. Yeah. I had no idea that while we're out there stuffing our face with popcorn and soda, there was an entirely different team working behind the scenes, changing everything. So when the curtain opened, it was something brand new. And you have to understand the same principle. You cannot confuse your intermission with your finale. Just because you don't like where you are, just because you don't see God working does not mean he's not moving behind the scenes. There's working things out in you, and it's in the dip that you learn. James 1, I mean, count it all joy when you go through trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience, and let patience have its perfect work so you can be mature, complete, lacking nothing. We all want to be mature, complete, lacking nothing, but we don't want to test.
No.
And God's like, you can't skip this.
How much did you, was there a play on words with the dip? I mean, did people bring you dip?
Oh, yeah.
Did you take a dip?
Guacamole dip.
I mean, it was just a lot of dip.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
There's a lot of things happening around, no one is dipless.
Yeah.
All this kind of thing. So can we do a dip 2.0? I mean, do we need to start over here on Unscripted?
Well,
do you need to announce a dip 2.0?
I thought about another book, Don't Quit in the Dip, but then also Don't Quit on the Top. You don't, once you get there, don't feel like it's over either.
It just doesn't sound as cool as dip.
No, it's not as cool.
Quit the dip other than quit on top. I mean, that's just, that's not you.
We had guacamole at the launch party.
Of course you did.
You couldn't have Don't Quit in the Dip and not have that.
I can't believe they didn't start like a new thing called like the Nepstad nachos. And there was not like, how did it start? How did the team not come up with that? I mean, do I need to move here and be the creative director?
We didn't fire the creative director here because they didn't come up with that.
Yeah. One of the things that's funny. One of the things that y'all love, and you talked about it, Diana, is culture. You're big on culture here. You feel it. That's a value. I know everybody that is successful, we've learned that from great churches, great leaders that have gone before us, especially the last decade or two. You begin to sense this culture and how important it is. You help protect that here. Yeah. So what does that mean to you? And then tell me a little bit, because you've got some exciting news about trying to help other churches about that. So what does it mean to you to protect the culture, and how would you describe the culture at Fellowship?
Well, it's an intangible quality.
Yeah.
It's what the leaders embody. And if you have healthy leaders that embody a healthy culture of a good sense of how they greet people, hospitality,
generosity would be one. You guys are generous.
Yes, and ARC has taught us so much about generosity. But not only generosity and hospitality, but the care of people. Yeah. And so it's like the big triad within every house. It's how you care and nurture the people. And it's what Jesus spoke about to Peter when he was asking him to come back on mission. He had the first breakfast after his resurrection. And so he said, Peter, do you love me more than these? It's basically saying, do you love me more than your first love and passion, which was the work that you really are passionate about, which is going and fishing? Will you love me more than just this, just having a job, just having to check in, clock in, clock out? It's the care and the nurture of sheep, which are people. It's synonymous to people. So here at FC, it's what you're going to sense is the welcome, the big welcome mat from in any house with the lights on, that when someone is gone and they're far away from home, you know that someone's waiting at the door for you. Yeah. You know, it's that embrace, it's the smile, the shaking of the hand, and being genuine. Yeah. Not wanting anything attached to that gracious hospitality, but that they know that they're loved for who they are and where they're at, and that the Lord will take them from that step all the way in. Yeah. Yeah.
You can sense it even during the worship, and that's a big important thing. God's giving you songs and giving you projects, and your daughters are involved with that. You can, and that music is a big cultural thing here.
Sure.
Yes.
You can feel that when you're here. I mean, if that's your background, isn't it interesting how God has now rewarded you with daughters and teams that you're putting out music and songs and a sound? Because I think culture has a lot to do with sound and words and things like that. And again, we've learned that from some great churches that we've learned a lot of this from.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. You can feel that when you're in the room.
Yeah, and we put a big priority on his presence.
Yeah.
And if he's not in the center of all that we do and how we work, then really we do everything in vain. Unless God builds the house, the laborers labor in vain. And so for us, we try to embody what we feel, what we sense, especially in this generation that is searching for so much more, and yet they're coming up empty. Why, either through spiritual practices, the dark arts, going to psychics, they're contemplating life. You have very successful young people, yet just taking away and making a last decision about their own personal lives and just to end it all. That is an extreme, and so we want to create music to be the vehicle of where they can sense the presence of God, that can answer simple questions about their faith, questions about what love is, purpose, mental health, capacity issues, intimacy issues. I think the Lord has so much more to say about who he is through the vehicle of music in this day.
Yeah, I bet you I've got testimony after testimony.
Yeah.
People rolling up in church,
weeping,
tragic,
crying.
trauma, people messed
or
up,
atheists,
and all of a sudden.
Atheists, people that are former Muslims, and they experience for the first time in God's house the presence of God.
Yeah, that makes all that sacrifice, all those days you waited for growth, all those days you tried to get it right. And those are the things that make it all worth it. I think you do have to pause when you have moments like that. We see so many lives transformed. And it's like you want to pause and celebrate it and thank God for it. And I think it keeps the wind in my sail, whether it's a new church plant or you at Highlands, someone's giving their life to Christ, you get to have a moment with them. And then that's the reward and the celebration of culture, that the culture worked. It gave God the glory. His presence was here. We made much of him, which is what the whole thing is about. And Shaun, what you love doing is helping churches get it and helping other pastors discover it and then try to practically what does that look like in their context?
Yeah.
Which I think is super important because it's a different variation when you're in a rural setting or a New England setting or a younger or older, church setting. So why is that important to you? And what do you feel like, something you want to help churches with?
Well, I have a program online with a coaching component that is all about building killer culture. Because you're either building killer culture or your culture is killing you.
That's so true.
And this goes for the business guys and women and churches alike, that if culture is anything we create or allow, there's not one thing that we're not responsible for. Because we either created it or we are allowing it.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, how many churches, how many businesses are allowing bad culture to run the show? And whoever runs the culture, that person is the strongest, most influential, most powerful person in your organization, regardless of title. So I find a lot of people are hesitant to engage in toxic culture. And so this program will help you identify, discover the culture you have versus the culture you need. What is that gap? And then it's helping to design the culture that you want.
Is that through like a testing or conversations, or how are you coming to those conclusions with someone that runs a company that has a small business that maybe is trying to plant a church, start a church, lead a church? How are you helping them through that? What is that going to look like?
It's a great question. They're online modules, but there's a weekly coaching component.
Oh, fantastic.
So we get on the phone call, the Zoom, and we all are able to talk this out. So some of it is them learning from each other. Some I'm able to give advice to, because we know what it's like
You're teaching best practices.
Yes, to have healthy culture, but we also know what it's like to have culture slip. And drift, and then you're like, how do we drift this far?
Yeah.
Well, you let it go. You delayed the inevitable, and now you're stuck trying to swing the ship all the way back around. So in church life, it's very important to have the right culture, and it's how it feels.
Yeah.
It's the language you use. You walk into some businesses and restaurants, and you want to go back. You just love the way you feel when you're there.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Church ought to be that way.
I mean, they make you feel.
Yeah. And then there's other places you're like, I'm never coming here again. Ever. Unfortunately, some churches fall in one of those two categories. All churches fall in those two categories. And will people want to come back to spend more time with Christians and Jesus? Or are they turned off and they're like, I think I'm good. I went to a church one time. I saw something weird. So it was offensive. I'm good. And then they're stuck searching for the rest of their life. And because we were false advertisement. So culture is very, very important.
Well, you know what I like is that you're in it. You're working on culture today, right now. Here we are, spring of 2024. You're working on culture right now.
Absolutely.
It's not something that you used to do. I think the best teachers are those that are still in the trenches.
Yeah.
And that you're still figuring out, okay, culture in the kids, culture for students. Okay, what does it feel like in the worship team, in our dream team, in people that are serving, in our weekend expressions? Or if you run a company, what does it look like with our sales? What does it look like with our service, to people? What does it look like as we wait on and help people and fix problems? Yeah. So you're in it, so you're working on it, which I think that makes what you're doing and what you're offering even more valuable, because you're saying it from what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Leading your church, leading your team, growing the church, and those kind of things. How do people find out about that? And where would I get that if I wanted to learn about it?
They would just follow me on Instagram and then go to the webpage, ShaunNepstad.com. But with that being said,
which is always entertaining, your Instagram.
Yes.
You have an interesting, entertaining Instagram because you're drinking coffee now.
Yeah, I just started.
It's changed everything.
Oh, yeah.
45 years, and I hated it.
Yeah, you're all in it
and
now.
I tasted it with a certain way, and I'm like, I think I could do this.
You're dialed in.
Yeah. I'm super wired right now.
Because Nepstad needs caffeine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm better with caffeine.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
I think, though, for leaders, we're always looking for plug and play and set it and forget it.
Wow.
And that's not pastoring.
Yeah,
that's not leadership.
Yeah.
Leadership is
not
shepherding. It is farming. You don't plant a seed one time and never have to do it again.
Yeah.
This is a constant, reoccurring thing that you have to continually cast culture, because culture always drifts. And so you as the leader are the lane assist, and you have the car and you click lane assist. If you have that feature on your car, if you've ever rented a car with lane assist, you take your hands off for a second and it starts to veer off it'll kind of push you back to the center.
Yeah.
We need that. People need that.
What was your worst car you ever had?
My first car was
some clunkers.
Well, my first car was a 1982 Buick LeSabre.
LeSabre.
Oh, I called it my LeSabre Tooth Tiger.
Yes, it was.
Had a sinking
It had lane
headliner.
assist, I'm sure.
Had 3 different size tires.
Oh God. That headliner that you used.
It was drooping.
How did it work with your
velvet,
hair?
Crushed velvet, long
Did it mess your hair?
Yeah, a little bit, but I leaned to the left. And I had 2 15-inch woofers and 4 6x9s in the trunk.
Oh my
man,
goodness.
Had a hole in the brake light. When it rained, it would fill up like a fish tank. I wonder where that is.
What did you have when you planned it? What vehicle did y'all have? Y'all had a little minivan?
I was stuck in minivan purgatory for 17 years.
So you were hauling equipment?
And the
Yes.
Honda
Did you haul
Civic.
equipment?
Remember
Yes.
Chelsea boots were a thing?
I remember,
If you didn't have Chelsea boots in the early 2000s, were you even a saved?
Yeah, some people still working.
But I would jump out of my mini boots. My mini boots.
Baby boots.
I would jump out of my minivan with my
Mini
boots.
boots, not
idiot.
mini skirt.
Yeah. And you were in how many different locations? All on the wall
All
here.
right, well, the city made us move every year.
Yeah.
So we're playing musical churches. We're the first church of the homeless,
Yeah.
like every year. We moved 9 times in 8 years. Just bouncing from cafetorium, which isn't even a word. It's a cafeteria with a stage.
Yeah.
Rolling, smelling like tater tots and gym
100%.
socks. And we got the law reversed. And then we move into a community center. We don't need it anymore. So yay for all the other churches.
Yeah, get to use it.
Yeah.
And just set up and tear down.
13
Yeah.
years set up and tear down.
Yeah.
I hear pastors nowadays like, man, we've been setting up and tearing down for like 13 months. I'm like, you shut your face. I will scissor kick you in the throat right now. 13 months. Try 13 years.
God, and there was many mornings it was you. I'm sure you were there.
Yeah.
And the custodian showing up all late on Easter Sunday morning
Oh
Yes.
my God.
with the Starbucks coffee.
Yeah.
Like you had time to stop for
Yeah.
a coffee and you're
Yeah,
late
yeah.
on Super Bowl Sunday for us.
And you trying to get the kids ready.
Oh, yes.
Trying to get them over
4
there.
of them.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Those are great days. They're just painful days. And
Yeah.
we look
Never
back
forget
at
'em.
them.
Never forget 'em.
And they make us. So you're both lead team members of ARC. So you're on the lead team.
Mm-hmm.
So you help us make sure we do what we're supposed to do. And we plant churches. You make sure our vision happens, which is to start new churches. And so, my goodness, we're over 1,100 churches that we planted.
Incredible.
And look what God has done. You guys give to that, finances. You give wisdom to that. You help guard that along with the other lead team members. What is your advice to a church planter? Maybe someone's thinking about planting a church. What do you say to them right now? Dan, what do you say to a church planter right now? What's your hope for them?
That everything that they have dreamt of or planned in their heart will come to pass.
Yeah.
It needs to be big. It needs to have wings. It needs
Yeah,
to
it's
have
good.
people around it to protect it.
Yeah.
And what I see is a new generation of ministers coming on the scene. They're going to embody everything that the Lord hoped for them in this season.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is going
That's
to be
good.
pretty incredible.
Wait, they need it.
Yes.
They're going to need it. They're going to
Yes.
need your word. And you preached a sermon a while back that, man, I was taking notes about being unwavering and having resilience and resolve. I mean, that's what you're hoping for all these church planters.
Absolutely. And they will.
Yeah.
And they will.
That's good. That's good. So, what do you think? Helping to lead ARC, I mean, I lean on you a lot out here on the West Coast. What's your hope for a church planter?
When I was 21 years old, I walked up to an older preacher, Chuck Swindoll.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I asked
That's a
him,
legend.
Yeah, I asked him, can I see your notes? And he showed me a napkin that he'd written a quote on from 1957. His notes were scattered, and I was just so enthralled with his communication ability. And I asked him, what advice do you have from a young man that wants to start a church one day?
Yeah.
And I was expecting something so deep. And he laughed real loud and didn't really understand closeness. He was way too close. And he looked at me and he said, take your time, do it right. When I left, I almost thought I got gypped. But
Wow.
the more I started chewing on it, I thought that was some of the wisest advice I've ever had. So many guys get the word and they think it's got to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
And usually God gives you a word in seed form, and you have to water that thing, plant that thing, grow until it becomes something of beauty. And even Abraham was told by God, you're going to be a father of nations.
Right.
problem, he didn't currently have a son.
Yeah.
So there's a waiting season, a developing season that you'll have to go through. And there are things that you will have to sacrifice in order to get to where God's calling you. And one of the things that God told Abraham to do, he was like, get me a cow, get me a heifer. And he answered a few questions, and Abraham's going back and forth about it in Genesis 15. I don't want that. I don't know. And I've come to realize God will answer your questions unto a point, and then he just asks sacrifice.
Yeah.
And he cut the bull up and the sacrifice and laid it all on the altar. And from that moment on, there was a huge sacrifice of worship that Abraham had to give. And I realized something, that all of us have had to give sacrifice. We've all had to give up something to start a church. But one of the things that's interesting about sacrifice is they would kill the animal, so you wouldn't be tempted to bring it off of the altar. Don't ever try to take off the altar what you've laid down for God.
Yeah.
Let me say it this way. Don't try to resuscitate what you've sacrificed. Some of the things that you've laid down and you're so excited to give to the Lord, well, when difficult times come and delays come and denials come, don't try to go back on the altar. What happened was these vultures started coming around, circling, and Abraham had to protect his sacrifice. There will be moments where you have to protect the sacrifice. What I've realized is that dead things don't crawl off the altar. Living things do.
Right.
The parts of my life that have not fully died to, they are still kicking and screaming, trying to come off the altar, because my calling has a competitor called comfort, and I want comfort and safety more than sacrifice. What I've realized is that I have to completely die to the Lord and say, Lord, I'm all yours. And so when you're planting, you go in with that mentality. I've already died. I'm already his. I've already been bought with a price.
Right.
So it's going to be hard. It's going to be rough, but don't crawl off that altar. Your sacrifice will always be disturbed. You have to learn to fight those vultures off, fight the vultures of fear and doubt and insecurity. And I would recommend to let the commitments that you made in the presence of God turn into covenants that keep you dedicated in the presence of vultures.
Wow. That's strong.
You talk to excited pastors who are ready to launch. They can't wait to launch. You try to slow them down. They're like, no, well, I got my date already. I'm in. And then a year in, they're calling, oh, dear God, please help me. Just remember all the things that you've laid on the altar before you started, and then protect that sacrifice.
Yeah. One of the things that, from the very beginning of ARC, Billy, Chris, Rick, Greg, Randy, you guys, so many. It is take your time and get it right.
Yeah.
That's what our team is constantly preaching, saying, take your time.
Yeah.
You can't, you don't want to, you only get to launch it once. Some people relaunch, but that's not the goal. You don't want to have to relaunch. That's not the ideal situation.
Right.
And then get it right. Get it right. So in that time, in that training, in that assessment, in that coaching, we're trying to help people who have a great dream, who have great possibility, who want to sacrifice something great. We're trying to help them to get it right on this side of the launch.
Right.
Because we all know this. Once you hang your sign out, we open for business, you can't unhang it.
Yeah. Right.
And you want to be able. So I encourage everybody who's thinking about planting a church or want to plant a church, I'd love for them to plant with us, because we are going to help you. We're going to probably slow that thing down a little bit.
Yeah.
And we've got to get some things right with the team, with the finances, with, if there's anything that you need to sort out in your own life, any wounds, any baggage we need to unpack, anything about the marriage. We always talk about ministry, money, and marriage. Are those things legit? Are they good? Hey, is your soul healthy?
Right.
Because we've got to plant healthy churches, not just ones that grow well. They grow with health. And is that marriage healthy? Is there anything from the past that you've not sorted through? Let's get you out to the old retreat with Pastor Greg. Let's get you some counseling. Make sure you're healthy. You've dealt with those things in the past that could creep up. Because it's not like when you plant a church, they're going to get scared.
Right.
It almost sometimes amplifies the deficits
Yes.
that could happen in your soul, or if there is brokenness. That's not right, you know. I had a church planter sit me one day and said that they were having some challenges in their marriage, and they said, "I just think if we get this thing together, it's going to fix it." Oh gosh, it's like, oh no, no, that's not, that pressure is not going to fix it.
Right.
You know, you're gonna have to work on those things.
Right.
And that's what, you know, that's why I love our process.
Yeah.
And love having couples like yourself that are, you know, mentors that can speak from the journey, models. So thanks so much for helping us lead ARC. And thanks so much for being out here on the West Coast, along with some other great lead team members, saying let's plant some more churches.
Yes.
And I so appreciate you guys. I've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed our conversation, enjoyed our time together, and I love coming out to Antioch. Love coming out to fellowship and get to see your family, get to see that grandbaby. Come on.
I know.
That's what it's all about.
He's
That's
so
what it's all
precious.
about.
I love him.
I know, man. The granddad world. What is he going to call you?
I think I'm gonna be Grandpa.
Grandpa.
Yeah, because there's a lot of cool hip names out there.
Yeah.
But I had a grandpa who was very special.
I like that,
So
Grandpa.
I don't think I'm mine, Grandpa.
Yeah, I don't think-
she's gonna be Lita.
Abuelita.
Abuelita is
Yeah, I
grandma
love
in
that.
Spanish.
Lita for short.
Yeah. Delina's Sugar, and I'm Chief.
Oh,
So it's a cool name. I went with the cool name.
well,
I just wanted to tell you that. I
I
went with the cool
heard
name.
Lee Domain, his grandbaby accidentally called him Boss,
Oh, he loves it.
and he kept it.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Our daughter, McCall, who's had the first one, has determined that I am Chief.
Yes.
And I wanted to be Godfather, but it just didn't make sense with grandfather. And so anyway, that's what, just call me Dino. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Flintstones, jabba dabba do.
I honestly think if he calls me Blob, I'll be fine with that.
Yeah, I'm the
You'll
same
melt.
way. I'm in that space with you.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks so much
Love
for
you.
being a part of Unscripted Season 4. The Nepstads are amazing. How do people find you? What are your Instagram, Fellowship Church? What is
You
it?
can go to my MySpace account.
Yeah, MySpace.
Yeah,
It's so
I'm big
strong
on
right now.
MySpace.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
Instagram, Facebook, Shaun Nepstad, Dianna Nepstad. We're real easy to find.
Yeah, you are. Hey, thanks a lot.
Love you.
Thank you.
Hey, we're so honored that you joined us on this episode here at Unscripted. If you're interested in learning more about planting a church or partnering with ARC, we'd love to get you connected. So visit our website at arcchurches.com for more information. Love to have you a part of this journey. So thanks again for being here, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Unscripted.